thinking too little can be dangerous. There are plenty of situations in life where you damage yourself because you haven't thought them through. But what about overthinking? Is this really a problem? Shouldn't we all think more? You generally want to think before you make a decision, right? You want to think about your environment to be able to better work through it. All of this is true, and yet overthinking can be costly. There's a difference between thinking and overthinking. Once you realize that, you can start to introspect when you are reaching the state of overthinking. This could become the first step in solving many of your problems. We are thinking, which is a natural part of everything we are doing. Let's take eating, for example. Before you put food in your mouth, you think about what you want to eat, what you should be eating, where you will go to eat, and when you will do so. A simple thing involves plenty of thoughts over a period of time. There are different levels of thoughts. Big decisions require a lot of quality thinking, where small decisions will generally not. What you eat requires less long and deep thinking than, for example, buying a house or what career you should choose. Of course, this is just the first step without considering the wider world. For instance, there's at least another layer to our thinking because other people are involved that have their own decisions that influence ours. Some decisions we need to consider what other people are going to do. Lastly, everything that is happening in the moment has the potential to make you think. Another influence on all of us on a moment-by-moment basis. You go out early in the morning to work. You see and interact with the world, which in turn makes you think. Something mundane might have happened, like a leaf on your car, to more irregular moments like your neighbor coming out telling you that his child broke his hand in an accident and they are now driving to the doctor. Whether internally or externally, you are constantly pushed to think. This is normal and above all else useful. You want to be aware of the world. You want to be in constant dialogue with what is around you and even more importantly, with what matters to you, so you can find the best ways to interact with all of it. This is absolutely a feature of humans and humanity, especially when you have to make decisions. Thinking is a crucial element to it. Then there's overthinking, which is a type of thinking that pushes past the limits of being useful. See the graph with time and improvement of your decisions on the x and y axis. Thinking is a curve where it goes up over time, but eventually the decision will not be improved any longer. So it either plateaus or, the more likely scenario, thinking makes your decision worse. After all, you need the flow from thought to decision to action. If you are stuck at the decision part, you will not be able to execute. One of the issues is the difficulty in finding where the point of transition to overthinking really is. This is especially true because some topics do deserve deep and long thinking. They deserve deep introspection. And sometimes it can be very useful to think it through for a good period of time. So your first task is to observe yourself better. You watch yourself, you listen to yourself. Eventually you're going to realize how you go too deep into a topic, how it pushes you where you lose control. Your emotions will explode, which will lead to you focusing on all kinds of details that are not really relevant. You get stuck often, which can lead to you spiraling. If you observe yourself, you will eventually say, okay, this is not right. This is clearly overthinking, because suddenly you lose sight of the bigger picture. You lose sight of the initial problem and focus too much and for too long on certain aspects. Again, it is tricky because there are difficult topics or important decisions to make where suddenly what used to be overthinking in one area is not overthinking here, but maybe the right level of intensity, the right level of quantity. But even then, you can overthink where you seem to be stuck, incapable of making a decision. So overthinking is not a clear line. You will see when you cross it, and then it becomes that, which is why it is important to be aware. Take a step back and evaluate yourself. And then there are questions. These are also very useful. Question whether you have thought of all the important parts. Have you answered the important questions? Are you now only procrastinating with the decision because you're afraid, or is there actually something that needs to be considered more? If you start learning more and more towards yes as an answer, you might be inside the territory of overthinking. I mentioned that overthinking is bad, but why exactly is that? What costs are there to thinking too much? Thinking is something good, right? Shouldn't this be something we do non-stop? We sometimes hear you think too much, but oftentimes the big problems come from people thinking too little and then starting to do something without having actually evaluated the situation first. Now, this is something that we can easily imagine. There are costs and potential dangers attached to both scenarios, thinking too little and thinking too much. Both are necessary for you to understand and then be able to navigate your way of dealing with certain new decisions, new information, new data. Thinking too little leaves you open for all kinds of risks and dangers. A good example are scams. Nefarious people change their username, pretend to be somebody you know, family or friend, or somebody working for a company you have dealings with, and then tell you that you need to do something. Or they write an email from an email address that is not real, but it is close enough to the real thing if you don't look carefully. Maybe substituting an L for an I, and suddenly it really looks like the real thing. So they tell you might be compromised, something is happening, you need to click on this link to protect yourself or send your information, and then your issue will be solved. Because you don't think, you don't realize that this is a scam, that there are glaring red flags which will lead you to lose a lot of your money. There are plenty of situations like those, including plenty where it is not about bad people doing something to you, but simple interactions that will not result in something favorable. You have a conversation with a salesman who offers you a product. They want you to buy, and if it is a good product you need, then great. But what if it is not something you need? What if it is overpriced, for example? The salesman doesn't have any evil intention per se. The salesman saw you two talked, then he offered you his product and you bought it. And because you didn't think enough, you didn't realize that maybe you couldn't actually afford it, or you just simply don't need it. With some more thinking, you would have evaluated this much better and avoided plenty of problems. This is even more important the higher the cost, the bigger the product, or the bigger the situation. Then there's thinking too much. Thinking too much, generally speaking, doesn't lead to the same damages, to the same risks. If you think even more than normal and still got, let's say, tricked, that has nothing to do with thinking. That has more to do with your knowledge. This has more to do with your ability to guard yourself from these things. Either the person was too good in their scam or in their sales pitch, or you just lacked the information to see it. Damages, scams, all these elements are not connected to overthinking. What then is the cost of it? You don't make decisions and therefore don't take actions when you think too much. This is the danger. This is the issue of overthinking. You might even think yourself out of doing something because overthinking allows for all kinds of emotions and issues to seep in. You wanted to think about something and you think and think and think until you find some aspect that probably has nothing to do with the core issue and you use it to not do anything. Normally, you consider the glaringly important elements that make your decision, then you go to the more nuanced aspects of it for a more comprehensive understanding and analysis. But with overthinking, you just start to consider smaller and smaller issues. You go lower and lower, and over time, you're not able to arrive to a good conclusion or make any decision. It is good to understand that sometimes a bad decision might be better than no decision at all. This is similar to this idea of if you want to avoid people dying from cars, then limit their ability to drive fast. Maybe 10 miles per hour, maybe 20, maybe 30 at maximum. But that is not something people are willing to do, right? You can drive very slowly and mandate it for everybody. What would be the point of driving then? There is a sweet spot where the risks are higher but tolerable compared to what it would require to have the risk at near zero. Thinking is very important. It is crucial to do so. But if you overthink, it's similar to the very slow drive that has a massive cost, and that is that you will not be effective at all in the thing that you're doing. The cost of thinking too much is that you are not able to take action when you need to, and most of the times decision making and executing on them is what makes a big difference in people's lives. The last part we should consider in this topic is the following. You don't know the future. I know we are all aware, but most people only understand it theoretically. They don't really understand it emotionally. This is one of those reasons why overthinking creeps in. We all have important decisions that impact our future with all our dreams and hopes and desires. You have these various ingredients with who you are, where you come from, what you want, where you want to go, your strengths and weaknesses, the people around you, and so much more. You bring them all together through your thinking and consider all the different potential branches that come out of the mixing of these ingredients. You think and adjust, adding new elements and mentally explore different routes to see where they might lead. All of this is fine, except there's a problem here. If you don't emotionally understand, you are not able to ever see the real future, and you will not be able to ever think yourself towards clarity. You might quickly get stuck thinking that there might be some hidden path to success if only you would find the right ingredient of thought to add into the mix. And of course, thinking will help to some degree. You can improve your odds of being right, of creating somewhat of a true vision of the future. This is why thinking is so important. The higher the quality of thinking, the higher the odds that your vision will be right. However, it will never be 100% accurate because that's not possible. If you think at a high quality for a while, for an appropriate amount of time, the irony is the only way for you to get to one of the worst outcomes is to think but never take action, because then you just drag it out. This is not a video against quality thinking, on the contrary. It's about stopping you from entering a bad mental place. Eventually, you have to make the decision anyway and go for it. Keep in mind, you are only able to see the future, to know what will happen in the future, if you execute towards it and see it. I'm sure most people in the world would have thought about their desire to do something. Be it videos, be it business, be it learning something new. Then you think for a week or two, for a month, you research the topic, and that might be fine. But then 2 months, 3 months pass. If you gave yourself 2 weeks to think, to plan, to strategize, 3 months later you would have already had 2.5 months of execution that you could now evaluate. And now you're thinking another month, and suddenly it's 1 year. Right? And compare you thinking for a whole year, or you think for a month and then start executing. Suddenly, 1 year later, instead of thinking for 12 months, you have thinking of 1 month and 11 months of experience.